Hello, hello, hello. How are you? I hope you guys are well. I just wanted to say thank you so much again for everybody who's doing such beautiful work. One of you sent me some amazing instructions, including fantastic time connectives, adverbs, and brilliant use of punctuation using our exclamation marks. In a writing task, which was absolutely fantastic. Somebody else sent me a beautiful handwritten letter, which was absolutely gorgeous. So thank you to those two children. You absolutely made my day. And thank you so much to everybody who's doing such good work on busy things. I absolutely love it. I miss you all so much. I was speaking to Miss Farley today, and we were saying that we really miss you all and that we can't wait to see you back in school whenever that is. So, I wonder if you remember which story I said that we were going to read next. Can you remember the title? If you said Dogger, you were correct. Now, do you remember what month? Can you have a guess at remembering what month we read Dogger in? It was at the very beginning of school. Do you know what month we started school in? Last year. Quite a long time ago now. Can you tell whoever's sitting with you? If you said September, you would be correct. Well done. We read Dogger in September. So that's about, let me see, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, 7 months ago. So that's a really long time ago. So I wonder how well you remember the story and if you remember any of the characters' names. Now, if you have a look at the title of this book, Dogger, I wonder if there is a clue on the book cover who the author is. If you can tell the person sitting next to you, who is the author? Do you remember what an author does? If you said Shirley Hughes, and an author is someone who writes books, the author of the book is the person who wrote the book, you would be correct. Shirley Hughes wrote this book. And I believe she illustrated it as well. Illustrations is another word for pictures. So without further ado, let's begin. Going to go on this side to make it a little bit easier to read. Once there was a soft brown toy called Dogger. One of his ears pointed upwards and the other flopped over. His fur was worn in places because he was quite old. He belonged to Dave. So that's a picture of Dogger. Dave was very fond of Dogger. What does fond mean? Can you remember what fond means? If I say, oh, I'm really fond of my teddy bear, what might that mean? Dave was very fond of Dogger. He took him everywhere. Sometimes he gave him rides in a trolley. Sometimes he pulled him along on a lead made of string like a real dog. When it was cold, he wrapped him up in a bit of blanket. So there are the beautiful illustrations there for you to see. Now and again, Dave's mum said that Dogger was getting much too dirty. She showed Dave how to wash him in a bowl of soapy water. Then they hung him up by his tail on the washing line to dry. So what can you see in this picture? There's lots of things going on. Do you remember the name of any of the other characters? How many characters can you see in this picture? And do you remember what their names are? I wonder if you can tell the person who you are watching this video with. Dave's baby brother Joe liked hard toys. He liked putting them in his mouth and biting on them because he was getting teeth. Now we've been learning about materials. What do you think are the materials that Joe's toys are made from? What materials are hard? Can you remember? Dave's big sister Bella took 7 teddies to bed with her every night. She had to sleep right up against the wall to stop herself from falling out. But Dave only liked Dogger. There's Bella with her 7 teddies. How many teddies do you have in your bed? When I was little, I used to have 3 in my bed. I wonder how many you have with you. One afternoon, Dave and Mum set out to collect Bella from school. Mum took Joe in the pushchair and Dave took Dogger. Next to the school gate where the mums waited was a playing field. Some men with ladders were putting up coloured flags. Mum said that there was going to be a summer fair to get money to buy things for the school. Dave pushed Dogger up against the railings to show him what was going on. So a summer fair is kind of like our summer fete, our fair that we have each year. And I remember I was on the Hooker Duck stall last year, which was so fun and lots of you had a go at. Just then, children started to come out of school. An ice cream van came round the corner playing a tune. Bella ran up with her satchel flying. "Mum, can we have an ice cream?" Mum gave her the money for 2 cones. Joe didn't have a whole ice cream to himself because it was too dribbly. Now, a satchel is a bit of a funny word. Can you see anything in the picture that you think is a satchel? I wonder if you can point to it. What do you think the satchel is? If you're not sure, you can ask whoever's watching the video with you. On the way home, Dave walked beside the pushchair, giving Joe licks of his ice cream. Joe kicked his feet about and shouted for more in between licks. Looks like he's really enjoying that ice cream. At tea time, Dave was rather quiet. In the bath, he was even quieter. At bedtime, he said, "Oh, I want Dogger." But Dogger was nowhere to be found. How do you think Dave is feeling right now? What adjectives could we use to describe him? And why is he feeling that way? I wonder if you can tell whoever's sitting next to you, starting with "my opinion is," or "I think," and using the because challenge to make your answer even better. Mum looked under the bed. She looked behind the cupboard. She searched in the kitchen and underneath the stairs. Dave watched anxiously through the banisters. Joe watched through the bars of his cot. What does anxiously mean? Now, we were discussing adverbs, which are ways that you can do things. If I'm looking anxiously, if Dave is watching anxiously, what do you think anxiously means? Bella joined in to look for Dogger. She turned out her own toy box in case he was in there, but he wasn't. When Dad came home, he looked for Dogger too. He searched in the shed and down the garden path with a torch, but Dogger was quite lost. Dave was very sad when he went to bed. Bella kindly lent him one of her teddies to go to sleep with, but it was not the same thing as Dogger. Dave kept waking up in the night and missing him. Poor Dave. It's horrible when you lose something that you love, isn't it? The next day was Saturday, and they all went to the school summer fair. The playing field was full of stalls and sideshows. Look at all those amazing stalls. What kinds of activities can you do at the stalls? What do you think you do at the coconut shy? Which stall would you like to go to? There was a fancy dress parade. Whose costume do you like best and why? What would you dress up at a fancy dress parade? Then there were sports with an egg and spoon race, a wheelbarrow race, and a father's race. Bella was very good at races. She won the 3-legged race with her friend Barbara. Wouldn't you like to go in the race? They asked Dave, but Dave didn't feel like racing. He was missing Dogger too much. Then another very exciting thing happened to Bella. She won first prize in a raffle. It was a huge yellow teddy bear wearing a beautiful blue silk bow. He was almost as big as Dave. Dave didn't like that teddy at all. At that moment, he didn't like Bella much either because she kept on winning things. He went off on his own to look at the stalls. One lady had a toy stall full of knitted ducks and cars and baby dolls in bonnets, and there, at the very back of the stall, behind a lot of other toys was... Can you remember? Dogger! He was wearing a ticket saying 5p. There were a lot of people around the stall. Dave tried to explain to the lady that it was his Dogger who had got lost and somehow been put on the stall by mistake, but she wasn't listening. He looked in his pocket. He had 3p, but that wasn't enough. He ran to find Mum and Dad to ask them to buy Dogger back at once. Dave went everywhere in the crowd, but he couldn't see Mum and Dad. He thought he was going to cry. At last he found Bella by the cakes. When she heard about Dogger, she and Dave ran back to the toy stall as fast as they could. But something terrible had happened. Dogger had just been bought by a little girl. She was already walking off with him. Dave began to cry. Bella ran after her and tried to explain that Dogger really belonged to Dave, and could they please buy him back? But the little girl said no. She said that she had bought Dogger with her own money and she wanted him. She held on to him very tightly. Dave cried and cried, and the little girl started to cry too. But out of the corner of her eye she caught sight of Bella's big yellow teddy. She stopped crying and put out her hand to stroke his beautiful blue silk bow. Then Bella did something very kind. "Would you swap this teddy for my brother's dog then?" she asked. Right away the little girl stopped crying and began to smile. She held out Dogger to Dave and took the big teddy instead and went off with him in her arms. Then Dave smiled too. He hugged Dogger and he hugged Bella round the waist. "Thank you, Bella," he said. That night Dave had Dogger in bed beside him. Bella was practicing somersaults. "Shall you miss that big teddy?" Dave asked her. "No," said Bella. "I didn't like him much, really. He was too big and his eyes were too staring. Anyway, if I had another teddy in my bed, there wouldn't be room for me." The end. Now Bella, who is Dave's sister, did something incredibly kind for him, and that was swapping her big, beautiful, brand new teddy for Dogger so that Dave could be happy. So she gave away something that was hers, and she swapped it with the little girl in order to give Dave something back that he missed so much. So I wonder if your challenge this week can be to do something kind for somebody in your family. It could be something tiny like making them a picture, telling them how much you love them or how much you appreciate everything they do for you, because I know everyone's working so hard to look after you and keep you safe at the moment. Or it could be something like just telling them how much you appreciate them. So your challenge this week is to do something for somebody in your family that you love, and show them a way that you appreciate them and show them how kind you are, and that will make me prouder than anything, really. So keep up the amazing work on Busy Things, keep staying safe, and good luck with your challenge. I'll see you soon.